Hi. Welcome to Surel Space. It's almost like you just walked in the door and found two people in conversation as you came to Surel Space, which is the feeling that we love. And speaking of people coming in the door, here come a couple of people right now. In fact, these are board members from Surel Space, Brett Perry and Deborah, and they are on our board, which is, we always love having board members here. My name is Jody Eichelberger. I'm the program director here at Surel Space. I'll also point out our other two staff members that are in the back here behind the camera, Hallie Maxwell, who's our operations assistant, and Marnie Elmore, who is our director of development. I spoke to the folks that are here in the room with us a little bit about some upcoming events. One that's coming up this very weekend with internationally renowned tap dancer Andrew Nemmer back in the garden. So find our website for that. It's going to be a great event. And then our next artist in resident is coming to us from Texas. We call her Cassidy Robinson, but she has a different credit. And she is a composer who has worked with members of our community recently, highlighted at a performance at the Morrison Center that did anyone see Classical Queens at the Morrison Center? So all of that music was written by Cassidy. And we thought it would be really great if she could come and spend more time in our community and continue those collaborations with Jessica Joy. And Keandra is going to play, and we're also bringing one of the violinists that is part of the Boise Philharmonic and from Portland to be part of the ensemble. And so she'll have two events. She'll have a workshop that is open to all creatives called What Color is My Brain? That's not the exact title, but it's close. And then she will have a concert called Death's Motif. It's a very dramatic Broadway-style piece that she's building. And she will also be performing with her ensemble with more music, including music probably from Classical Queens on First Friday, August 1st. And we're hoping to do those concerts back in the back garden, which should be really lovely. In fact, that's also where the Andrew Nemmer performance will be this coming Saturday. So we're really excited you're here. All that information is on our website, surelspace.org. One of the ways that we involve volunteers is in supporting our artists is by being a community host. And this month it just happens that Ivy's community host is also one of our newest board members. And so it's a great way to also get inside the program. And these board members do a lot of work. And so it's really wonderful when they can do more work and discover more about the inside of the program and what it's like to support these artists that come from all over the world. So I'm excited to introduce to you Heather Plummer, who has been the community host for Ivy Raff. She's going to tell you a little bit about Ivy. Ivy's going to do some reading, and then she's going to bring up our local collaborator, visual artist, Clementine Zenner. And there's going to be, between the readings, we're going to have a little bit of conversation about the collaboration, a little more reading, and then I might come up at the end for a little bit of a Q&A, and then we can just hang out and drink some more wine and have some more snacks. And maybe enjoy the back garden for a little bit too tonight, just to get a little taste of that. So please help me in thanking the support system that we have in place here and our community host, Heather Plummer.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you can keep going. I'm just kidding. It was such a pleasure to host Ivy. She is a really extraordinary person. And thank you all for showing up here to support her tonight, and Clementine and the beautiful work that they've done together in their collaboration. I see some familiar faces from the last reading and from the workshop. And those of you who have had a chance to see Ivy read before know that you're in for a real treat tonight. After writing poetry privately for 2 decades, in 2021, Ivy Raff left a long career in technology and public policy to focus solely on writing. Since then, she's written 2 poetry collections, Rooted and Reduced to Dust, and What Remains. I don't speak Spanish, but Picada, is that
close enough?
All right. A bilingual English-Spanish translation, which won 2nd place in the Dolores Alberola International Poetry Prize. Her heritage threads through her poetry. The 2 collections explore how Bolshevik-influenced Jewish immigrant family in America moves across time. Their granddaughter is a pro-woman, pro-Palestine writer working with complex individual and cultural histories of trauma, abuse, and healing. Her individual poems and translations have been published in such noted literary spaces as Ninth Letter, International Poetry Review, Electric Literature, Atlanta Review, and Aesthetica Creative Writing Award Annual, among numerous others. Ivy serves creative communities as the Senior Systems Project Manager at McDowell, the United States' first artist residency, and as a member of the editorial staff at Seventh Wave Magazine. And it's been such a pleasure to have Ivy join us at Surel's Place as our artist in residence. So please join me in welcoming her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I can't believe this month, this residency is over. I'm leaving at 4:15 a.m. in a few hours, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing people that I've come to consider friends over the last month. So it's a joy to kind of be in what feels like my living room with you. So on this, my last night in Idaho for a while, I thought it would be appropriate to read some reproductive rights poems. Let's get started. This is Prospect Park with my mother during an ectopic pregnancy. 1. She's traversed the Hudson, unaccustomed juxtaposition. When I'm well, my complexities scratch at her surface and she stays in Jersey, longs for the tiny girl I was, curls in tails, nose in books, before I absconded to the loud side of the river. Now the baby must die so I can live. I didn't want to be a mother. She wanted to be a grandmother, but not like this. 2. In these shadow weeks, each day may dawn my last. She's come to witness the impending hemorrhage. I'm sick, finally, and this she knows how to get on with. No stories from Rome or Taiwan, no book recommendations to scatter her concentration, to remind her she neither travels nor reads. Pregnant and dying, eyes smoke and sunken, I look nothing, like the smack-talking kid she scolded after the rape. It's the way you carry yourself. He could smell it on you. My mouth lacks the strength for the 30-year snarl I send her. She simmers milk for my oatmeal, shimmies my coat over my shoulders. 3. The doctors say walk, but just a little. Blood must not pool, must not rush. Orange gilds oaks, particularly vibrant this year. Red more rebellious. Every pace a gift. Felled leaf fire curls on concrete steps. The air is cool with kisses. Every day we stroll slow, so the dam won't burst. All right, this next one, I sort of started, I finished here, but started in 2022. It was during a week in Texas where on Monday, Texas effectively criminalized abortion. And then a few days later, there was a school shooting in Uvalde that killed 19 children and 2 teachers. I was, at the time, I had just finished taking a writing workshop from the New Mexico writer Jimmy Santiago Baca, and I was taking a road trip myself around New Mexico following the workshop. When I got the news, I was in this small town called Mesilla, where they had a sort of Catholic church from the 1500s the Spanish had built. So this poem is called No Children. 1. Empty basilica, wood slat walls, white Jesus expressionless. Blue eyes and blue eyes and blue eyes and more inaccuracies in the courtyard. A plaque, in memory of the unborn. We will not forget the victims of abortion. I remember the plastic sample cup, the doctor's hands, the white dot narrower than my pinky nail, bubbling slightly like mud after rain. Victimless, except me, in memory of something that was nothing except me begging that man to use a condom and his silent, smirking refusal. But who cares about that anyway? Let the Catholic Church etch a plaque and drop it on stones in the desert. 2. Parque de la Cura Ramón Ortiz, separated from El Calle Principal by 1 block and 1 extinct ash-smothered arroyo. Silent but for the sparrows and the hooting of white-winged doves, an engine turning in the breezed-over distance. No children fill the sun-faded jungle gym. No children creak the seesaw. No children shriek on swoop-backed pelican seats. No children ride the stallion with his black paint hair heat-rotted off. The horse and the pelicans guard the nothingness, dead sentinels still on the clock. The basketball nets motionless, blue picnic tables dull with dust. The slide longs to melt, the monkey bars droop in the air. 3. Not long ago in Uvalde, Texas, a man with a gun killed 19 babies and 2 school teachers. Spare yourself the photos of the children. Bespectacled or chubby-cheeked, thumbs tucked in taut backpack straps, vamping before birthday cakes, rosary draped, t-shirted, arch-browed, friendship bracelet stacked, satin bowed on Wela's lap, ponytailed under Tia's arm, half wrapped in sister's graduation gown and beaming. 4. Blackbird slices sky. A man rolls by on a bicycle and cranes his neck in my direction, cocks an eyebrow as if I am lost. I am, and I have been. We are, and we have been. All right, is everybody sufficiently depressed? Should we move on to something a little more fun? All right. This is called Dapper. When the sage smoke clears, then what? Same room, 1 less demon. I'll miss him when he's gone. The way his obsidian eye gleams when he wants to drum up some business. If you have a demon too, then you know what I mean by business. I'll miss the little humor curl of his mustache. A mortal man could never pull it off, looking too much like Hitler to get a job or any pussy. My demon is ageless, timeless. When I look at him, I forget all about world wars. His skin is a nice, warm gray, like a Weimaraner. You'd never guess he's death. He makes me feel so alive. It's the smoking jacket, maybe, so dapper, or the way his goat feet split in 2. How can those skinny feet hold up all that man? I thought the first time I saw him. Immediately, I flushed red as his boss, for of course my demon could read every thought. He stepped toward me. His hoofs tapped out Beethoven's For Elisa on the marble. of course. Of course he knew the only song I remember how to play out of thousands of dollars of childhood lessons. This, too, he claimed. So I'm going to read one piece before we go to break, and Clementine and I have a little conversation about our collaboration here. And this piece is very special because I did not write it, you all did. On First Friday, June 6th, we had this table here set up as a poetry table. So for First Friday, if you're not familiar, folks can come to the neighborhood. It's an open studio situation. People can dip in and out of all of these incredible artist studios. I think, I don't know, besides Paris, this is probably the highest concentration of artist studios on earth. But
That's a quote.
yeah, so, marketing. So anyway, so I was at the poetry table here, and I had folks coming up with their own ekphrastic poetry, which is a $10 word that means it comes from the Greek to narrate. And ekphrastic poetry is a poem in response to visual art. So I had some prompts up there, and we had these large index cards, and the question for people at First Friday, which I would even encourage you to maybe go home and write your own today, is what colors, textures, patterns stood out to you from Clementine's work? What did these shapes remind you of? We had several sort of entries. People left their poems here. And I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these ekphrastic poems you all wrote, and I'm going to fashion them together into one cohesive poem in response to Clementine's work. And then I said, if you would like credit, write your name on the back. And this many people wrote their name on the back. I'm sure some of you poets are in this room right now. I am anonymously crediting the collective here. So this is a community ekphrastic after Clementine Zenner, and the title is Memory Before Memory. I didn't know death grew under magnolia roses. May their memory be a blessing. You stretched out your hand. I received wire, crystal. Do I love you? I do. I do. What then did I give? Bone, teeth, ivory, a face worn, shadows created on walls, as though each shard belonged to others before time began. And on that note, I'm gonna invite Clementine up to join me here. And Clementine, the poem that we just wrote, this is for you.
Oh my God. I wish I knew who wrote it, so I could thank them.
All of them did. All of them.
That's really beautiful. I think they were looking at that piece right there.
So I taught a workshop in this space on June 14th, which I see a couple of my beautiful participants here. And the intro question that I asked everyone was, what's your name? Which I know Clementine's name already. And also, how did you come to be here? And you can take that question as wide or narrow as you want. Clementine, how did you come to be here?
I have no idea. I think universal goodness brought me here. I think it was fate, kismet, destiny that we met. I felt a kinship with you when we first spoke. It was interesting because I didn't know your writing before I was selected there was a call out for a visual artist for a month-long exhibit with a writer, with a poet, and I love poetry, and I was intrigued by the idea. So I thought, what the hell? I'll put my hat in. And it was pretty quick that they got back to me. And then you and I had a Zoom meeting with Jody.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an amazing first conversation. And I think one of us said, well, we need to talk again. Right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we did. And we had this amazing conversation. And it turned into some sort of sisterhood. And I've thought about this a lot since we've met, and I've only known Ivy for a little bit, but I already feel like she's a good friend. It felt like a memory before memory,
Mm-hmm.
like we knew each other somehow before we met in Boise, Idaho, of all places. So I think that's where it started.
Yeah, so Clementine mentioned the call that we put out, and we got so Surel's Place said, first of all, Jody, when we were communicating about what my residency would look like, he's like, we have this space for visual art. We don't know how to do that with a writer. So what do you do, right? So Jody had this idea to sort of bring in a local visual artist, and then it was the first time that I had done this, but I'm not an expert in visual art. I have an appreciation for it. It's from the gut and the heart. But Jody asked me to select the artist, and I very much felt like I didn't know what I was doing. We got a few submissions, all of which I loved. And I was like, oh, this one's great, this one's great. And then Clementine's work came in, and it clicked for me so immediately that what she does with what she does with sculpture is what I'm always trying to do with poetry. If you've had a chance to kind of look around at her work, it's very much the body. There's literally a sacrum of vertebral column. There are these, I think in real life they used to be pomegranates, right, where you're mold, but they looked like hearts to me. These very and then like we have sort of cadavers of like birds and bunnies, and they're all gilded and delicate, and they have these like lacy textures. And I just felt so much resonance with my own work, which is often very sad. Like, I don't know if you picked up on that at all, but I think, for people, and I'm not going to put your business out here, but like for people who are working with complex trauma histories, it has to go somewhere. Your body cannot be the coffin where all that stuff just stays. You need to write about it. You need to paint about it. You need to like season your vegetables very aggressively. You need to like you need to like plant a huge garden. Yeah.
I agree. So when I started, when I got into, can you hear me now? Okay, so when I got into the show, this exhibit, I started reading your work, and I was floored by your work. I was like, how did this happen? And it was like we were texting this morning about that spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that spiral?
Yes.
That Jewish idea of the...
Yeah.
Okay.
So I am going to put your business out here a little bit.
Coming back.
So I grew up in a very Jewish, I'm from Queens. Yes, we went to services, but if you've even walked in Queens, you got a little Jewish just from walking down the street. I mean, it's airborne. So I grew up in this community. I grew up with a lot of religious knowledge and just sort of in the culture. And Clementine has Jewish heritage, but did not grow up at all in the culture.
In fact, was forced to catechism as a child.
I'm so sorry.
By my father's third wife.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting.
And so yeah. So much of our work revolves around, but for both of us deal with these subjects of sort of like, memory and we use the term generational trauma so much that I'm sick of it. I think there's also generational joy. you know, I've never heard that anywhere, but if we can inherit these sort of imprints of fear from our ancestors, can we also inherit imprints of, you know, comfort and the way that we rejoice? And I think the answer is yes. So so Clementine and I have, you know, we've spoken about, so Jewish culture and so many Eastern cultures conceive of time not as a line, but as a spiral. You kind of keep going over and over things again, but it's, you know, it's not a circle, it's a spiral. It's like moving through time. So, and I
think generational trauma
yeah.
as well
Mm-hmm.
moves in a spiral. And unless you work to break that cycle,
Yeah.
it keeps enacting itself over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of my work speaks to my attempt to either understand or put to rest that generational trauma. And even understand my ancestry that I wasn't gifted with knowing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a Jew on my father's side, but my father never practiced. And my mother left when I was a baby, so I didn't have that heritage. And when we've talked, you talk all about your heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like we filled a gap for each other, if that makes sense. Or you filled, I won't speak for you, but for me, it felt like that. Like some of my heritage could somehow be restored by talking with you. My dad is also, he's from the Bronx. So when he died, I went to visit his apartment. I found it. And there was a man urinating outside when I got off the bus on the wall of his apartment, which was hilarious.
Was he urinating "Welcome to the Bronx" on the wall?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much. I mean, it wasn't long after that I called an Uber to leave, but it was great. I took some photos. And, but, you know, that disconnection is what I've always felt, that disconnection from my family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I've always wanted that. So I think a lot of my work is about trying to connect that, trying to get back to that.
When I first saw your work, I mean, everything drew me in, but I think I had a dream about it that night is these images of like blue fungi or blue mushroom growing out of like the cadavers of this cute little bunny and this beautiful little bird. Do you want to talk about that a little? Like, does that,
Yeah.
I don't know, does that kind of relate to what you're saying?
My understanding about the cycles of death and rebirth is that, and we can't stop it. We can't stop that cycle of death, no matter how much we try. Something else takes over. Something else recreates and rebirths and comes back. And I think that's the beautiful thing.
Yes.
About birth and death.
I just to go super meta on that for a second. I was talking. Where's Otto in the back there? I was talking. Hi. We're in a dark fucking time, you guys. It's so like I was just saying about like being Jewish is airborne in Queens. Like being afraid of fascism is just I mean, what, you know, and we were just talking before this started about how historically something really unifying has come after dark periods like this. And I don't know when it's going to happen. I do know that many, 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 many people are going to suffer a lot before we get there and already have. But I just, that's what came up for me is like, when you were talking about these mushrooms growing out of, it's so hard to notice oneself in one part of a cycle when it's a part of a cycle that we don't particularly like. And
I think both of our work seeks to stop someone in their busy life or even in their panic or their worry and it helps us to look around and be still in the moment and take in what matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people that matter, the beautiful animals that are in our world that matter, the nature that matters,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that keeps us sane in the world that is crazy, lunacy. I mean, that's where I go for my stillness.
Yeah. And about like keeping sane, I've been living in this space for a month, and I sit at that table when I write or do my little Zoom meetings or whatever, and I look at this all day. And what the structure just plays such a big role, right? Like this big sort of wire cage on the wall. Individually, it's all like kind of frenetic, right? And then you have this shadow on the wall that doesn't make any mathematical sense, but it's such a structured piece. And then bones are the structure of our body. We have these sort of, again, these smaller pieces on the wall, these little chaotic pieces that all have a structure behind them. And yeah, again, with the bodily references there, I think.
And even the glass pieces, they're kind of melting and flowing, and there's demise in that too,
Mm-hmm.
in everything.
Yeah. Her moon sign is Scorpio, you guys. In case you picked that. We discovered
We're like, what's going on with you?
I wish she was like moon in Scorpio. I was like,
You have some stuff.
obviously. Yeah, obviously. All right. So I think any on this theme of death, any last words you want to say?
I want to come and stay in Mexico City, so we're planning on another exhibition somehow, somewhere. Hopefully traveling exhibition would be fantastic. So I don't know, we'll keep you up to date with that.
We'll keep you up to date. And we've also been thinking about, this is an idea in its total fetal stage, but we've been thinking about running parallel workshops where Clementine, who is also a painter, by the way, will sort of teach a visual art workshop while I'm teaching a writing workshop. And this would be a multi-day affair, like a retreat somewhere. So parallel workshops, and then with the last day and a half, everybody presents their work, the writers read, the visual artists say, this is what I do, and then we sort of guide folks through creating a text and visual collaboration, like the one that we've done here.
Well, I was going to say, the collaboration was so magical, how it just came together. And I feel like everyone's creative.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has that. Everyone has that magic. It just takes time and effort and dedication, and then meeting your person that you collaborate with.
Yes, and not shutting it down in yourself. You know, we shut ourselves down with lots of training from the world. You know, we come by it honestly, right? How to shut yourself down, 101, 102, 103.
Before you let Clementine go, would you mind selecting one of the poems and reading the poem, and then Clementine responding with kind of a description of the piece that is connected to that poem?
Okay, do you have a preference for Adam and Eve or the electric burner?
No, I don't have a preference.
I wanted you to have a preference. Okay.
I mean,
all right.
Yeah, I love both of them.
Yeah.
I picked the electric burner. I had that in my yard anyway. I'm a hoarder. It comes naturally as an artist. And
A collector.
when I read your poem, I'm like, where is that burner? Where is it? And I found it right away. So that's why that electric burner is up there.
Yeah. So on that note, just before I read this, what we found, originally our thought was like, okay, Clementine, I'll look at your work and I'll write some ekphrastic pieces in response. But then as we got to know each other, we were like, neither of us need to create new work for this because our work is already pretty literally, which this is what you'll hear in this poem now. Okay. I have a visual impairment, so I'm gonna get right back here. So this is the electric burner my boyfriend bought in college. Since we met, he promised to replace it, bites a lip. I'm not sure it works. And then an atheist prays to boil soup. Who can explain why angels love damage, kneel at rubbled pews? Before his house became mine, we sat on the mattress's edge. He asked, "How do you keep going?" I said, "I accept my circuits will always break." He kissed the metal coil of my face. All right, so all right, so I'll read a couple more pieces, and then I think we'll open up for a friendly chat with everybody. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I quoted a statistic at my old Speak reading 10 days ago, which I will quote again, which is that in a recent Pew Research Center poll, they found that 82% of American Jews are pro-Israel, and I am one of the 18% that is not. I have been advocating for a free Palestine for over a decade, and when October 7th, 2023 happens, I was freelancing as a copywriter, editor, building websites, etc. And I lost 50% of my clientele. I was always very public about my stance on Gaza, and after October 7th, I got several messages to the tune of, "You see?" And I was like, "Do you see?" And I think it's just never been more important to be vocal, especially for someone from my community. This poem is called Sarah. Chapter 1. In shul, we learned Amalek painted itself Aryan blonde and rose from the devil's belly to destroy us, pure the whole time. Chapter 2. Mother of multitudes, they tell us we come from you. This we grip to our chests, a pearl, peerless inheritance we wrest from seas, Baltic, Mediterranean. Mother of multitudes, they name us Sarah, for the woman who birthed the women, who birthed the women, who birthed us was Sarah. Chapter 3. In Benin, a woman strung beads on a cord of leather and beckoned me. Come, granddaughter. I thought of the woman who birthed me. In West Africa, when a man speaks of his grandmother, you never know. Does he refer to the woman who birthed him? Or a woman long on the line of his ancient blood? Or a mythic keeper of seas? When I speak of my grandmother, I never know. Was she the woman who bathed me in ice when my fever spiked? Or the woman-shaped love that's only read left to right? Chapter 4. Mother of multitudes, what have we birthed, Sarah? We admit of America, we have much to learn. Of Yiddishkeit, we learn nothing but grip. Like you, I grew tall in myths of Jewish unity. The world hurtles always toward our murder. We nurse Amalek's words, extermination, final solution. Suffix, -tion, non-productive. Nouns for verbs, finale for action. Where momentum ends, cremation pyre dies. Skins dull to lampshades, body fat saponifies. Chapter 5. Sarah, you understand the source of this missive, yes? If you can bomb Gaza, what can you do to your own children who beg you, please let Gaza live? Jewish unity, until I beg you, please let Gaza live. What does our land mean to you? What do pearls mean to you? Always I thanked God we don't obsess over virgins like the Catholics, but what does purity mean to you? When Golda Meir cried she'd never forgive the Arabs for making us kill their children, what did purity mean to her? Chapter 6. This missive roots in my grief, Sarah. I never believed God chose us. Illusion is no death to grieve. Did God choose Armenians, the Hmong, Tutsis, the women of Bosnia? Who chose them? I grieve this ultimate proof of our humanness, a genocide state. I grieve the wall you build between your heart and mine, Sarah. Chapter 7. Your faith in Hashem died with your baby. Our bloods link so close they test our husbands. Our baby's bones could be razors, Sarah, and yours was. To you, one of our dead means there's no God. 30,000 of theirs means. Chapter 8. I believe in the God that took your baby and all the babies before her. I believe in the God in the rubble in Gaza, God of blood, hands. I believe God made my mother and the heart she won't dare beat. My grief I surrender to God, galaxy hands to hold it. So let it bloom. Let nothing blot my grief. I witness its pearl in God's hands. God, deliver us from the Holocaust, the one we survived, the one we reign. Okay, this next piece is called Lineage. Doing a lot of pieces in little chapters tonight. All right, number 1. Cleopatra had special talents for snakes and makeup. I always knew the texts lied about her state of unmarriage, for she was my mother's mother. And one thing I know is that in 64 years, my grandfather never saw her bare of rouge, lipstick, rings of coal about her eyes. A score of years before she died, Cleopatra slipped from her bureau an emerald silk tunic, caressed its hem along the angles of my face. All this will be yours, she cooed, but not yet. 2. My mother is Abraham. God said, kill your firstborn, and her eyes brimmed with answered prayers. Cleopatra's chosen must not breathe the air in this home. She raised the knife. Unlike Isaac, I glared at her. She plunged my chest, and God returned to playing bridge. God relaxes, smokes cigars. When it's just us girls, no one writes these tales. I resurrected when I wrote this. 3. My hair, Cleopatra's copper jewelry, burnishes silver with the years. My hands roughen. Against them, wood handles of knives rock slow Neanderthal rhythm. The forests birthed a years-long plague. Before it, my nails glinted unassailable, 2 rows of cherry soldiers. Every year clock click makes me look like everyone else. Europeans all born gray of one grandmother. So I'll live by bow and spear, wrap myself in skin, commune with stone and animal blood, gorge on antelope till my belly sings me to sleep. A huntress-gatherer, I mother what's to come. 5. I was what's to come from my mothers. They, absorbed in wine or dressmaking, child-rearing drudgery and backbreak, couldn't notice. Cleopatra's ancestors tamed silkworm trees, reaches of pure bark and branch. My foremothers bent to drape themselves. Anachronisms, all of us. 6. We all look so hungry. We all look like dim-lit hallways. My home is a maze of them. Come in, sit down, eat. Let's end on a perimenopause poem. This is so this one has an epigraph from, okay, raise your hand if you're familiar with Japanese death poems. Does anybody? Okay, a couple. So go out and get this book right now. It's not as sad as it sounds. So Japanese death poems is a collection of haiku about this thick, and it contains, so these haiku were written over the course of, I think, 400 years, possibly more, by Zen monks in Japan. And it was part of their tradition, again, for hundreds of years. At the moment of death, like you feel death come, it's right up on you. You write your last haiku. And in Japan, where historically and today, the cultural norm is to keep everything really, tight to the vest, just behind your real self behind a steel wall. These death poems, or this last haiku, is where you've lived this whole life, let it out. And they're just amazing. The breath of breath of wisdom in these tiny, spare 3 lines. And so I've done some work here to incorporate Japanese death poems into my own work. I will say, just before I jump into reading this last piece, I had a poem that I was working on for a year before I got here. A year. I couldn't get it to work. It was all these little disparate pieces. I'm like, I know there's something here. It wasn't fitting together. It was wrong. It kept being wrong no matter what I did with it. And here, for 12 hours straight, I laid on that purple couch and I got it to work. And if you're an artist and you've never been to an artist residency, that's why you go to an artist residency. There's no other day in your life where you're gonna, for 12 hours straight, sit on a couch and make the thing that hasn't worked work. And it's the longest poem I'm not going to do that to you guys. It's the longest poem I've ever written. It's 5 pages. I timed it to read here. It takes like 9 minutes to read, so I'm going to spare you. But I'm hoping to get it published soon because I'm very pleased with how it came out. That poem is based on a long prose piece that I wrote about my grandfather's sister, she died when I was 10, but I loved her. Like, I don't know if you remember being 10 and having that one aunt that you were just obsessed with. This was my grandfather's older sister for me. She was just like this super dramatic, like glamour queen. And I found out later that it was because she was drunk all the time. Like, but a kid doesn't, she was just like bombed all the time. But I didn't know that, I thought she was just amazing. So after her death, I learned that she kind of had this like very tragic life. So I wrote this long piece of prose about her life, which was not a poem. And at the same time, I was reading this book, Japanese Death Poems. And there is a Japanese form called a haibun. And what it is I know someone in here has an MFA in poetry. Hannah's like, yes, Ignis. So a haibun is this is your lesson in poetry for the day. A haibun is very like action-oriented prose, like you might read in a novel or something, followed by a haiku. And that alone can be a haibun, but you can alternate between prose and haiku many, many, many times. I mean, they're book-length haibuns. So this poem that I finished in a 12-hour block here was that story of my grandfather's sister interspersed with Japanese death poems. And one day I'll apply for another residency as a theater performer, and I'll give a dramatic reading of it, but it's a little long for today. All right, so we are ending with, so this is a Japanese death poem as an epigraph to my piece. It was written by the poet Enryo, and the haiku is, empty cicada shell, as we come, we go back naked. And my poem is called They Say Hallelujah Lives Up in the Mouth. 1. Mouths hold heaven, our words, clouds, our tongues, sun, velvet inner cheek, spun silver, surface of twin moons. Shekhinah pulls down hallelujah from sky into soil. In Morelos, cicadas slice tender branches of plum trees, lay eggs inside. Nymphs drop, burrow underground for 17 years, emerge when ready to mate at the start of the dry season. No rain to drown the generation to come. 2. I too know waiting is an action. When my body refuses to release its blood, I deep stretch on the floor, unravel thick strings inside my thighs over infinite earth. This is how bowls inside me know to tilt, to spill. This is how my body pulls down hallelujah. 3. In this late September of life, each month that bleeds is blessing. Leaves turn gold to orange on branches. One of them will be the last to fall. Science. By the time you're 40, 3% of viable eggs remain. But all my body is viable. I've always felt I'm just getting started. In spiritualist groups of my loud, exploratory youth, leaders lectured on the descending path. Some try to transcend the body, exist on high, numb plains. Others come down into thigh, thumb, lung. Lately, I can feel an electric twinge spark awake in the little pocket inside my left hip 3 days before blood comes. I can feel the abrupt death of a single cicada in the drought chorus of cicadas. One less soul singing riled, continuous song before it shrivels in its shell. Thank you. Okay, Clementine, do
Yeah, she can have too. Thank you. I want to say real quick that we do have a couple people watching online, and we do open up questions to you as well. So if you just type in your question in the text chat, hopefully we'll see that. We're going to keep this pretty short because Ivy has to leave before the sun even comes up. So it's a very early day for her tomorrow. But I do want to ask, because we call tonight Water Eye. Is some of the work that you read tonight connected to that, and what is that connection with Water Eye?
Yes. So Water Eye is the title of the manuscript in progress of my third book of poetry, which is when I applied to Surel's place, you identify a project you want to work on. I said I want to come here and get my ass in the chair editing my third manuscript because I hate editing and I won't do it at home. So that was the title. And this having been you come on an artist residency to sort of like get quiet time. And I've been way more social in Boise than I am in my life ever. This is the most active artist community. So I did not finish all of the edits to Water Eye, and so yes, all of the work that you heard tonight is in that working manuscript. What I did do instead of finish a full-length book is I put a chapbook together, which is a sort of an abbreviated poetry collection. I'm happy with it. I have submitted it to a couple of publishers. So not the full-length manuscript I was going for, but
Great.
okay. Yeah.
Some questions from you all out there, either for Ivy or Clementine or both? Yeah.
I was just wondering, question for both of you, if your creative mind ever kicks in at a time that's maybe not the most convenient, say you're in the middle of a task, or in my case, with career, if your creative mind just like, nope, we're gonna work on something. I just don't know if that happens to you guys.
Totally.
That happened to you?
Yes. Do you
It
want to take
happens
it for?
to me.
Yeah, I think it happened. Yeah.
Usually around 3 a.m.
Mhm.
Usually about 3:33 on the clock, I'll look over and I'll try to go back to sleep and it just niggles at me until I get up and then I write it down. It won't leave me alone until I write it down. Either sketch it out, write it down. Usually I write a lot too.
Mhm.
And the idea usually comes in words first. So
Mm.
what about for you?
Yeah, same. It comes up when I'm in the middle of just like daily life. I'm taking a walk with a friend and I see a rock that I have to write about. I can't be like, Lisa, could you go sit on that bench over there while I write about this rock? Like we can't do. So what I do is I keep my notebook on me all the time. My notebook is always with me. And I have on the back page of my notebook, I keep a to write list, like normal people have to-do lists.
Mm-hmm.
I have a to write list. Mm-hmm. And so I'll write down like the rock on the greenway that was shaped like whatever, and then when I do carve out time for, freehand journaling each day. And I never have writer's block because I always have a to write list.
Is it always though,
Yeah.
like word vomit? Like you just have to get it all out.
Oh,
right?
definitely.
Like all the adjectives about that rock
Yes.
that you love so much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then
that,
it'll come together later. At least you have
Right.
it out.
Yes. Yeah. But just getting the visceral stuff down, which takes much shorter than like going back and editing, putting line breaks. And is that the verb I really want to use? Editing takes much longer, but just, get a note down about it.
Was that a real example of a rock along the greenbelt?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because one of the selfish things I was going to ask is if there is an image or a picture or artifact that's from our surroundings that you took and put into something.
You know what I don't know if this is answering your question, but so as part of the residency, they very generously give you a bunch of passes to local attractions. And so I went to the Idaho State Museum, and there's sort of like a Sacagawea corner there that, why is she always so hot, you guys? What? Okay, but, all right. So I was reading these sort of like what are meant to be sort of biographical plaques about her life, and it's stuff like, oh, she was purchased at the age of 6, and her husband won her in a game, and just non-critically, you know what I mean? Like you can tell when writing in a museum is like taking a stance, and this was not. And I'm not saying that was inaccurate. I'm sure it was 100% accurate. But what I note as a writer, you notice grammatical structures. And what I noticed about all of the grammatical structures of all of those sentences, it was all in the passive voice. There was no doer. It wasn't like this man kidnapped her from her family into, And so what I have started, I didn't get to finish it. I was hoping to finish it in time for this reading, but it's not done yet. It's a diptych poem that is verbatim text from this plaque on one side, and right next to it in a second column is what actually happened. And so it's prompted me to do, I knew her name, I knew sort of like the basic outline of why she's a historical figure, but it's prompting me to do more research on her life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
A little side note for you, maybe this was part of the exhibit. The model for the Sacagawea coin lives here in Idaho,
Oh, really?
and occasionally will do speaking engagements in Boise. Yeah, and she's very good looking.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, not me. I was thinking the same, but okay.
Another question
Yeah.
from someone here? Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk about let me see, the beginning of life. To me, it seems the impression that there are perhaps two, like a Clementine's work, the beginning of life, from looking at the bird, seems when something else occupies or outgrows another body. But in the poems, I got the sense that the beginning of life is linked to logic or to the spiral idea, like logic in terms of there's a phrase, a verse that says that I know we don't come from God, we're not descendants from God, so that's kind of logic, realizing that because of what we have done, and surely we're not kind of descendants of God. But then there's also then other indications about the beginning of life is when something else is being relinquished. So I wonder if you could talk of it. There's a way that you can talk about how do you see the beginning of life.
And the big challenge for you, Ivy, is if you can summarize that question briefly so that we capture it for the online group too.
Oh, yeah, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Susan, your husband's too smart for me.
It's a light question.
It's a light question
Really
too.
light.
Well, it was light poetry. Veiko, I don't know how to answer that, man. I think, a lot of my work is about childlessness, which you wouldn't think of as like lessness, anything as a subject, right? It's just like nothing. But I do feel like it's a very. I'm 42 years old. Like I do feel like it's especially in the time we live in, it's a political choice to like remain, like a child-free family, and the beginning of life. Oh, do you have an answer for this while I marinate on this a
The
little bit?
beginning of life or the meaning of life? I don't want to hear anything.
Beginning.
Beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now I need to think about that.
I know.
And he was referencing your depiction of animals
Oh,
specifically,
Yeah,
like as a representation
and the fungus
of
growing out of them.
the beginning of life. That's the first stage of life that you talked about, as opposed to the mushroom that
I
comes
just
later.
think there's, the way I think about childhood, because we were children, there's an innocence that you have, and then there's an innocence that's taken. And either by someone else or something you happen upon, or, carelessness in nature. I think there's the beginning is that innocence, and then it's taken. And that's how I see it. And then I feel like my whole life I've tried to get back to that childlike wonder and innocence.
Is the mushroom innocent too?
Yes. Well, it's just doing what it's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's doing its job.
And I think, okay, an image came to me, Veiko, in response to your question, is like do I believe in astrology? I mean, I don't care if I do or don't, but I'm going to use astrology as a frame of reference here, right? I think what's interesting about astrology is that like human beings have believed in it for so long. You know what that's more interesting to me than like whether if you're a Virgo, you actually keep your house really clean or not. You know what I mean? But when I think about like the astrological wheel and how like you get to the 12th sign, which is all about sort of like transcending in death, you immediately, like the next one is the baby, you know, the rebirth. And yeah, I think that's where the sporilic nature of it comes in. It's just like it doesn't stop. So I live in I live in the mountains outside Mexico City now, where like they talk to their ancestors as if they're walking beside them. Like they don't see this sort of, if it's a solid object in front of me, it's real, and if it's not, it's not, you know. And I mean that makes sense to me. Like, why would I, with my tiny human brain and my tiny human eyes, be able to say when something ends and doesn't? I think it's just all going around again.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, it's like in every religion, there's some cycle, you know, like the Dharma wheel.
Mm-hmm.
There's just always a cyclical nature to everything. And us as humans are dealing with that cyclical nature. We're thrown in here and we are dealing with watching someone die or seeing our eggs die, or, you know, it's always going back to, and it's how there's some acceptance to it, right? There's like a lot of fight in it too, but there's also some acceptance. And I think that's where the peace is that acceptance of our demise and others' demise, and then capturing that somehow.
Mm.
And I think, Deborah, maybe, did you have a question? This will be our last question formally, and then you can ask some specific questions as we depart. That you want to give us yours?
This is not quite as deep, but you had all of your pieces complete, or did you create any new pieces in collaboration, or was it just matching the artwork to the poems, basically?
Everything was complete, including our meeting.
Okay.
Like, I just felt like from beginning to end, it was like,
It was already done.
it was already done.
It was, for me, the sort of new creation element in this was like, I've done plenty of collaborations with writers. This is my first collaboration with a visual artist. So thinking about like where to place the text on the walls and sort of what matches with what. And so this column where again, they were pomegranates, but I think of them as hearts, this sort of like triptych of pomegranate hearts. There's text all around. And I learned actually from a Boise artist on First Friday that the average amount of time that a visitor to a gallery or a museum spends with any given piece of visual art is 3.2 seconds. That it's a tragedy. You know, I mean, picture people like kind of like walking through art galleries, like, oh, you know, and so what we kind of came to, so, you know, I think the three of us collaborate. I don't know whose idea it was. It felt like it was the three of us all at the same time, had this idea to place the text around. So as you're sort of like walking around the column, which for First Friday was out in the middle of the room, you're sort of getting this it forces you to slow down and engage with the visual piece as well.
We liked that idea, forcing the viewer to slow down.
Yes. Yeah.
I've never done a collaboration with a poet before. So I've only done collaborations with other visual artists. So I think this should be done all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I actually
It's
really
beautiful.
enjoy having a person who has a facility with words, such as yourself as a poet, describing a visual artist's work. It's really fascinating. And then I had a programming idea to get like a motorcycle mechanic and a landscaper and like a essay writer or a jingle writer, and have them sit here as a panel and describe the work. So we'll see, maybe that'll be coming up in a future evening here. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. Again, we're going to move into more casual time. I do need to mention that tonight is sponsored in part by Creative West and the National Endowment for the Arts. And is there anyone else?
Just the usual First Interstate Bank.
First Interstate Bank, And of course, all of you people who are members at Surel Place and give monthly or give gifts annually, it all goes to support work like this. And what a special evening it is to be able to come together in a space like this. So thank you for being here. Good night.